Do we need a paradigm shift? Well, let's hear it from our expert, Dr. Netpreeya, CEO and Executive Advisor of Inspiring Wisdom Limited. Dr. Netpreeya, a former director of various offices in Department of International Trade Promotion, Thailand Ministry of Commerce, specializes in new business development, product design and value creation, logistics, and supply chain management. She's also a former government spokesperson and held many important positions with Thai government. Dr. Netpreeya, known as Kru Kate, from her revolutionary English teaching in Thailand, and has won numerous awards from her previous success as the most influential woman in Thailand. Please welcome Dr. Kate.
Ladies and gentlemen, well, we have heard from various speakers about the new paradigm shift in the logistic industry. And I believe that every one of us here would probably agree that this is now time that we have to change. Actually, Thailand, has trying to aim ourselves as a logistics center in the region. But then we have to, really take a close look into ourselves and really ask, can we be the logistic hubs, in the region? Because one of the major problems is that we're facing a shortage of human resources. I believe that everyone agrees with that because I have talked to some of my colleagues here in the logistic industry. Well, some people mentioned that we have like 80,000 trailers in a parking lot, and this is because we cannot find the drivers. And we have lots of positions available, but we cannot find the right people to work for us. And from K-Bank Research, they forecast that this problem is still, going on until in the next coming years. So basically, how are we going to cope with our problem in terms of shortage of labor forces? Well, I might, suggest you two solutions, and I believe that, all of us has been doing that. And the first solution is that, well, we need to import, workforce from other countries. If we talk about the operation, levels, we could import people from Myanmar, Laos, Cambodia, and Vietnam. And if we're looking for a top management people, we could import from Malaysia, Vietnam, and Singapore, those kind of stuff. And the other thing, which the two speakers has just talk about, is to use the IT or the technology, so we can use the ERP system, the TMS, the WMS, in order to help us ease the problems of the labor shortage. But at the same time, I've been talking to lots of the management and business owner. Everyone complains to me that, hey, I've been investing lots of monies in terms of the IT system, and we've been trained them intensively, but still most of your staff don't want to use it, right? And most of your staff relies on the very old manual ways, or use Excels, whatever. So how are we going to cope with that? Let's take a look at the first solution first, that I mentioned that we need to import workers from foreign countries, but what countries should we import them from? Well, in terms of general workforce, at the moment, there are big problems in the Philippines and the Indonesia of the very high rate of unemployment. From my personal perspective, I believe that Indonesian is quite good, but they need lots of encouragement and need lots of motivation. The Filipinos works very hard, they speak fluent English, well, but at the same time, they're kind of easygoing and need lots of training as well. In terms of engineer and other highly skilled workforce, we have realized that in China and in India there's a big shortage in terms of the experienced engineer, and so Thailand, the same as Thailand, we have a severe shortage in terms of the highly skilled workforce as well. So could we rely on the imported workforce in terms of engineer? Well, some engineer in Vietnam is quite good, but still they need lots of trainings. In terms of the IT workforce, this is also a severe shortage in the IT workforce, and lots of companies has tried to solve that problems by outsourcing the IT fields into some other countries, just like China, Vietnam, the Philippines, India, and South Korea. Well, Mr. Duve, the managing director of Dasher South Africa, he says that companies need to train their employees consistently a solid base of logistic management skills, including the tactical and strategic aspects, is critical for the company to exist within the competitive logistic environments. So I think that everyone in the logistic industry would agree, with him that people is the most valuable asset, and then we need to train them. We need to help them so that they can grow to their fullest capacity. And how are we going to do that? We don't have enough people here in Thailand. We need to import them. And so in the very near future, you are going to face another problem, is that how are you going to manage, people from different countries? Well, the Thai styles and Indonesian style and the Vietnamese styles. And the most important problems that I've been seeing at the moment is the language problems. Because every time I meet people, they always ask me, Kru Kate, can you find me, some staff who can speak fluent English? Why? And that is because, their workforce has become a multinational workforce, and then they need people who can, be able to communicate in English so that, they can work well with, staff from various countries. And so how are we going to help solving these problems? Everyone in the logistic fields need experiential training for workforce development, and also they require a specific skill for the operational staff. Well, easier said than done. How are we going to do that? So if we take a good look into the top 10 specific skills that I believe that all of the business owners and the top CEO here would want, all of your staff, to have. If you look at the white and the yellow skills, these are all the skills that could be acquired, from the university, or you can train them. But then the other skill, like the green one, the purple one, and the brown one, those are what I call is soft skills, and which is like very difficult, to train. Like for example, lots of company has been, train their staff in terms of the computer literacy. You spend lots and lots of money in training your staff to use a computer or even a language course. But then after that, only a few months, they tend to go back and doing whatever they're familiar to do with, and they don't want to change. We've been, studying a lot in terms of communications. Okay, you teach them how to communicate with other people. You teach them the cross-cultural communication techniques. But if your staff, they cannot communicate well in English, and if your staff has fear, they fear that they cannot be accepted, in terms of the internationally accepted, they don't want to communicate with other people. So at the moment, lots of companies who has employed various staff, from various countries, also complains to me that they don't know how to make, their staff, mingle around. Thai staff tend to, talk to the Thai staff, and the Chinese staff talk to the Chinese, Vietnamese talk to the Vietnamese. So this has become one of the biggest challenges, for all the executives, and how are we going to make them work together harmoniously? Okay, so if we take a look at the old ways of trainings and coaching, which I would call a contemporary, styles of trainings and coaching, now we will see that the objective is mainly to change people's attitude, hoping that they would change the intention, and then lastly, the behaviors would change. And most of the trainings will give them lots and lots and lots of information and knowledge. And basically the tools that we use in the HRM, we use like Bergman personality test, we use the 5-trait personality, we use the DISC dimension, all those kind of things. It seems like, these tools will help us to know what types of people do we have, but then it didn't solve the problems. How are we going to make them, work at the top of their capacity? Okay, and the contemporary training will aim for behavioral change, but none of this training could, guarantee a sustainable change. So you will see that every time you send your staff, to the training, maybe in Thailand or overseas, after they come back, they feel good about it, and they will try to use it, at your company, like for like a couple of months, and then after that, they feel like, oh no, it's not going to work, and then they stop doing it. So I believe that this is like a big waste of time. So this is a new paradigm, in terms of the HRM or the HRD, basically. How are we going to make change, become a permanent or sustainable? We need to understand the way people think. Okay, one of the things that I've been studying and like having passions, studying about this is what we call a neuro psychology. Okay, so this is how we understand people from the way they think, and if we really understand them and then we change the way they think, and we using the techniques of what we call a rewiring the brain network. Okay, people seems to rewire, their own thinking, and if you rewire your thinking, repetitively in the negative ways, and then you're going to become a negative person. And if you think in a positive way, then you'll be a positive person. And so we come up with the new tools, which we call the inspiring inner self psychological models. And the result is that we will create passion. Most of our staff, they work day by day, get, paid, and then go out and enjoy, food and drink with their friends. But we don't want people like this. We want people who have passion, in whatever they're doing, with the companies. And we're aiming to create a sustainable change. Okay, so let me show you our models, and that will make you easier to understand, okay? People do not change if you tell them to change, okay? They don't change if you train them, or if you buy the new equipment and tell them, hey, you have to use the new equipment, they don't change. But whenever they feel like, wow, this is like, they have a sense of urgency, well, this is a time that we have to change, and then they feel the need to change, that is a good sign that people will actually change. But how can they change? Some people they feel like the need to change, they feel the urge to change, but then still they don't change because they lack of self-esteem and the lack of self-efficacy. Self-efficacy means that they believe that they cannot do it well. So if people believe that they cannot do it well, even though they really want to change, they will not change. Okay, so our model is that we are going to increase the self-esteem of people, and we are going to help them really understand their own self-efficacy. If they have these two components, it will become what I will call the inner strength or the passion. So when people have the inner strength or the passions to do so, then they would make change by themselves, and it becomes a sustainable change. Okay, so I'd like to show you, so this is how we, are going to do this, I believe that some of the top executives here, like Dr. Kru Kate just mentioned in his presentations, that at the moment the top executives are so worried they cannot retire because they cannot find a successor, right? And also some of the business empire, they feel like, gosh, I'm rich now and I want to travel the world. I want to hand on my, business empire to my offspring. But then their son and daughter said, oh no, I don't want to work with your company, Dad, because I want to build our own, business empire. I believe that, most of us here are facing the same problems. So how are we going to help you? You need to become an inspirer, or you need to make, your key staff to become an inspirer so that they can start inspiring other people, so that they can start facilitating other people to find their own capacity, to find their own passion, and so that they can make change of their own. Okay, and so what we come up is what we call the inspiring succession plans. So we will help the top executives find what I call the success DNA. So once we can identify the success DNA, then we can try to equip that success DNA into your successor. But it doesn't mean that, we need to force other people to become like you. But in order to, make them realize, their capacity and know how to, make the success. So the success DNA will help you and your successor to grow in their own highest ways. Okay, and also in terms of the corporation, a corporation will exist if it becomes like the learning organizations. So every successful organizations will have their own DNA as well. So we call it corporate DNA. So in order to make the corporate growth and with a sustainable growth, then we need to identify the success DNA of the particular person, of the top CEO, and also the corporate DNA, so that we can make a match between the corporates and the individual DNA, so that this can be hand on to the next generation. Okay, so this is what we're doing, and this is the thoughts that I like to, leave it with you, that in order to become whatever you want to be, the most important of all is a person, is a people. And I believe that everyone facing the shortage of, like a capable personnel, and you're also having problems how to keep the, good people. So we might have solutions. So maybe after this, during the cocktail party, and then we can discuss more about this. Well, thank you very much for your kind attention.